Okay, welcome to instructional video number 2. In the previous video we learned how to speckle our sample. I'm going to move the sample aside, we're going to use it eventually in this video. We also have a tripod here which we will not use in this video but the subsequent video in which we're going to do the actual experiment, and then finally we have the ball bearings that we also don't need in this particular video, so I will use them in the next video and put them aside in the meantime. So what will we use here? Well, we have all the pieces neatly laid out here. I am very appreciative that probably you did not do that and you shouldn't, but for the purpose of this video I felt like it was a necessary aesthetic element. Anyways, we're going to start out by taking our frame. This is the bottom plate. It's an aluminum plate with the 2 aluminum rods. They're threaded and secured to the bottom plate in that way. The first step is to take this bottom portion. I want to make sure this is actually in the video. I'm going to move the things here to the side. There we go, not so neat anymore. And just slide that down here. Obviously this should fit fairly well, otherwise the pieces weren't printed or machined correctly. We have this big top portion here that we'll use to secure the upper part of the frame. And we have 2 large M6 hex head screws that we'll insert up here in the top piece. And we will have wing nuts to secure them in place. Tighten them sort of a little tight, but not too tight. You don't want to break anything here. Although I have not managed to do that yet, so hopefully you will not. I provided wing nuts because I want to make sure that everybody can assemble this at home without requiring any screwdrivers or any device or tool. The next step is to take these counter pieces here and insert them in the bottom and the top portion. Please note that while they are identical, they're not symmetric. So they have rounded edges that you may want to align with the rounded edges here and here. And one side has sort of inserts for these smaller hex head screws. So our next step is to insert these screws in here. And then insert this bottom piece down here, just like I did here. The next step, we turn this around, we take these smaller wing nuts, and we put these smaller wing nuts on these threads. For some reason this is always harder in the video than in real life. This is sort of an easy trick to accelerate this whole process. So you just screw them on, and then you kind of flick these screws. Works quite well. I'm going to do the same thing up here. So I'm going to insert these screws here. Went flying. And we put one here and one here. There we go. Again, we will turn the whole thing around so you can see the process of putting wing nuts on. It's an important step. You don't want to miss that. Again, surprisingly hard. And we flick this. Accelerates the whole process a little bit. You may think that these screws are too long, and they may, depending on what sample you use. But I want to make sure that you can actually extend this clamp fairly big and thereby also clamp thick samples. All right, the last step is to take this balloon insert, and as the name suggests, we insert that into the balloon. You just kind of pull this balloon over here. You want to make sure that the upper lip of this balloon is above your insert, and then you just kind of want to pull it in place so that you can insert the ball bearings later on relatively easily in here. And then the next step is to lift this up a little bit, put the balloon in here, and there we go. I actually designed the insert to be at an angle as well as a receptacle here as well, and so there's a wedge effect that essentially is self-tightening and therefore allows you to put quite a bit of weight on here without the balloon slipping through. The final step in this assembly is actually to take now the sample, take the masking tape off, and you see it worked quite well. It protected our sample from being speckled at the clamps, and then to insert the sample into our clamps. So to this end you want to loosen this enough that there's a gap that you can then use to put the sample in. So I'm going to just sort of carefully spread this and then put the sample in. You want to pay attention and make sure that you insert that fairly symmetrically so that the loading in the end is also symmetric. Careful. You may want to avoid touching the speckle pattern too much. I purposefully provide the information for a non-waterproof or water-soluble ink, and the reason simply being that if you make a mess, you can wash it again rather than permanently staining everything in your lab as well as your desk or wherever you're actually speckling your sample. And then we're going to do the same at the bottom. Again, you want to make sure you have enough space to actually clamp the sample, slide this up, carefully guide the sample into this gap, which is sometimes a little easier than other times for some reason. And now, again, symmetrically clamp this. I'm holding it for the purpose of demonstrating this here. Tightening this. Okay, good job here. Doing the second one, making sure the sample doesn't slip out or move in the meantime. And that's it. Actually, I didn't do a super great job. It's slightly tilted, but of course, this is a demonstration video. Naturally, it doesn't go perfectly. Anyways, so this was the final step. You can see we can displace the sample here. There's no friction between the bottom piece and the rods, and we're all ready to go for video 3. Hopefully, you'll watch that right now. Appreciate it much.